solidarity, outrage, and resistance from Jewish Voice for Peace, New York City. JVP works for justice and human rights for Palestine and Palestinians and an end to militarized policing under the occupation and its export to countries worldwide. So why do we in JVP feel it's urgent to join in all of you in protesting the brutal assassination of Marielle Franco and her driver in Rio de Janeiro last week? First, JVP is engaged in a national campaign called Deadly Exchanges. This campaign aims to expose the complicity of the Israeli Defense Forces and mainstream Zionist organizations in training and supplying police units in cities across the globe, such as Rio, with tools of mass surveillance, militarized weaponry, including targeted assassinations, and suppressing popular resistance. These are tools developed for use against Palestinians in Israel and the occupied territories, but they're exploited everywhere. Israeli companies supply hundreds of millions of dollars worth of drones and weapons to the Brazilian police. And the IDF was deeply implicated in helping the pacification police units, UPP, in Rio, in their massive eviction, displacement, and repression operations in the lead up to the 2016 World Cup and Summer Olympics. So the militarization of Rio's police and its use of brutal tactics is not just a local matter. It's part of a worldwide security industry and urban securitization strategy, anti-democratization strategy. We don't yet know who pulled the triggers that riddled Marielle's and Anderson's bodies with bullets. But Marielle was an outspoken leader in the opposition to police violence in Rio. She had been appointed rapporteur of a commission to monitor federal intervention in policing in Rio. She called the struggle against police violence a war. So which powerful interests wanted Marielle dead? At the very least, the Brazilian state and its Israeli and U.S. allies in crime are complicit in creating the environment of militarized violence that enabled Marielle's death. Another thing for us in JVP, we stand resolutely against all forms of racism, including anti-Black racism, anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, and xenophobia. We support the leadership of women of color in social justice movements here and abroad, from Black Lives Matter to the women in the favelas. Marielle was a highly visible and dynamic leader of Brazil's strong and assertive Black women's movement. That movement has long protested the intersecting legacies of racism, misogyny, and slavery that have confined Afro-Brazilian women to menial jobs and hypersexualized their bodies. As here in the US, Black women and their family members in Brazil are far more likely than their white counterparts to die from homicidal violence, especially police violence. And this is said by Priscilla already, but I'm going to repeat it because it's so important. Right before she was killed, Marielle was participating in a roundtable called Young Black Women Moving Structures, and her final tweet, protesting yet another police killing of a Black man, said, "How many others will have to die for this war to end?" We in JVP ask the same question. And we link Marielle's death to the killing and mass incarceration of young Black leaders and potential leaders in the US and young Palestinian resistors in Israel-Palestine, like Ahed Tamimi. Finally, as an organization led by many lesbians and genderqueer people, we in JVP honor Marielle's identity as a fearless Black lesbian. We honor her life as one lived in celebration of gender and sexual justice. Though a city councilwoman, Marielle was still in some ways on the margins in a society ruled by patriarchy, racism, and homophobia. She was triply vulnerable. These issues are inseparable. The same forces that promote militarized policing and the securitization of our cities are steeped in a racist, misogynist, homophobic culture. Marielle's murder was perhaps spectacular, but these are the everyday forms of violence she devoted her life and politics to expose and defeat. Remembering her, we must do the same. Thank you.